Today on the channel, we're talking about a product that I have never used before. Obviously, I have used this product for this testing, but I haven't used any similar products before, and mainly because I didn't really have any use case for it. But this one is actually pretty cool if you do need it, and that is a wireless HDMI system. And what it does is obviously taking an HDMI signal and transmitting it wirelessly to a monitor that could be further away. Being a one-man band shooter or shooting most of my content with Bell, I didn't really have a lot of use for this in the past. But what could you actually use this for? There's mainly two things where this could actually become in pretty handy. Number one is when you need a director's monitor. So if you have a bigger crew and you have a dedicated director as well as a DOP and a first AC, or you even need a client that is constantly on set and they want to check the framing and the overall look of what you're shooting, then they obviously can't just walk alongside you and look on your camera screen all the time. So what you do is you actually set up a client monitor or a director's monitor somewhere away from where you're shooting, and now they can follow the action at all times. And this is the setup that this is actually intended for, but obviously there's other use cases as well. One would be to pull focus wirelessly, which isn't 100% recommended by the company because it does feature a slight delay, but we went ahead and did it anyway, and I will talk about how this turned out later in the video. But there's also other use cases you can use a wireless HDMI transmitter system for. One being where you want to set up a monitor and you don't really want to have any cables. For example, you have an overhead rig that is far away, or you have a camera mounted somewhere in the corner of a room and you just want to monitor your camera, and there's various small feature sets where this can come in really handy. But without further ado, let's actually roll the intro and start the review. The Vaxis Atom 500 system is pretty easily explained. You have a receiver as well as a transmitter, and both feature an NPF battery. On the transmitter, you have an HDMI in signal, which obviously is the feed from your camera, and you also have an HDMI out system, so you can actually attach a monitor to it. The unit also features a little display and 3 buttons where you can change the channels or make other adjustments to your settings. The receiver looks pretty much the same, for the exception that it doesn't feature an HDMI in but 2 HDMI out ports. So not only can you transmit your HDMI signal wirelessly to one monitor, but up to 2 monitors. So why did we get the Vaxis Atom 500 system? We actually wanted to use it on a big project in France, where Bell was skating on the ice, filming some figure skaters, and we wanted to transmit a wireless system to outside of the ring to be able to check the framing and also just follow the action along with potential clients or the director. Unfortunately, that project didn't happen for several reasons, so we still wanted to test this out because there will be a really big project coming up by the end of the year where we actually need that kind of setup. But we wanted to make sure that everything works perfectly, so we did test it here in Vienna. The first thing I did is I went out with my friend Freddy and we went to a local skater park. And the first thing we wanted to try is if you can actually pull focus wirelessly on the Vaxis Atom 500 system. I think the official latency is about 1 or 2 frames, which obviously isn't too much, but for dedicated focus pulling where you're pulling focus on fast action, you really want to limit the latency at all costs. And the problem is, what we did is I attached one of the receivers on top of my monitor. The problem is the signal that got transmitted was really laggy and it wasn't really high quality, so it was kind of hard to pull focus. But the problem wasn't the receiver, it was the monitor, because the monitor on top gets really hot and it transmitted a lot of heat onto our receiver, and that actually made the signal go bad. So I tried it later on a different kind of set and we had a superb image quality and no problems at all. So that was obviously my fault, and a big tip for you: try to keep the receiver as well as the transmitter cool and don't mount it directly on top of your monitor if your monitor gets hot a lot. Well, I went ahead and tried pulling focus wirelessly anyway, and even though the quality wasn't that great because of the overheating issue that was my fault, I was still able to keep the majority of my shots in focus. And that is pretty surprising for a wireless HDMI system in that price bracket, because usually a system that is dedicated to being able to pull focus wirelessly is about $1,500 to $2,000. So yes, if you don't have the fastest paced action and you're just pulling focus casually and you kind of predict where your subject is going, I think the Vaxis Atom 500 system is totally fine to be able to pull focus wirelessly from time to time. Another cool use case for the Vaxis Atom 500 system is when you're doing high action shots on a gimbal. When running with a C300 Mark III mounted on a Crane 3S, basically all you need to do is try to not fall on your nose. And you don't really have the luxury and try to keep the framing at all times and you're basically eyeballing it. But just running around all the time and then checking the footage later is also a tedious process. So what we did is we took the transmitter, we mounted it to the Crane 3 and then had Belle check the framing so she could actually abort the shot when I was completely way off from trying to put him into framing. And even though I was running quite fast and I was sometimes really far away, the signal was always at a really high quality and with virtually no lag. So this is a use case that actually works very, very well. One thing I do wish that the system had was an SDI in and out, because when I'm shooting on the C300, I'm only using SDI. And for some weird reason, the C300 or the C500 can't output HDMI and SDI at the same time. So I can't really use my SDI cables and SDI monitors, so I need to switch my entire system to HDMI in order to be able to use the HDMI in and out of my monitor. And that was obviously a rather unique problem, but if you're using a smaller camera like an EOS R or a Pocket 6K that only has one HDMI out and you're using the internal display just to check the framing from time to time, this is totally fine and absolutely no problem. Just bear in mind when using SDI and you have a camera that can display SDI and HDMI at the same time, then the Vaxis Atom 500 system might run you into problems. So I think there isn't really that much more to say to the wireless HDMI system, because it does have one job and that one job it did very well. So if you're looking for a really inexpensive, reliable, high quality wireless HDMI transmitting system, then the Vaxis Atom 500 is definitely for you. They also run a pretty great promotion right now and you can get 10% off your purchase, which makes the whole system even less expensive if you use my discount code, which is in the description below. So check this one out if you want to purchase one of the products. So now, let me know in the comments below, have you ever used a wireless HDMI transmitting system? And if you haven't, what would you actually use this for? And if you like this video, then go ahead and actually like the video, subscribe to our channel for more, and I hope to see you on the next one.